Most gardeners make the same mistake when planting fruit trees. They spend weeks searching for the perfect variety, carefully compare prices, and imagine baskets overflowing with fresh fruit. Then they look at their yard, notice the hard clay, rocky ground, or dry sandy soil, and quietly give up before they even begin. They tell themselves, fruit trees just won't grow here. But here's the surprising truth. Some fruit trees don't just tolerate poor soil, they've adapted to it over hundreds, sometimes thousands of years. In fact, planting them in overly rich soil can sometimes encourage excessive leafy growth instead of better fruit production. That realization completely changed the way I looked at gardening. Instead of trying to fight my soil every season, I started choosing trees that naturally fit the conditions I already had. The result? Less frustration, less money spent on soil amendments, and healthier, more productive trees. Today, we're exploring 10 fruit trees that thrive in poor soil trees that many gardeners overlook simply because they aren't as popular as apples or peaches. Yet these resilient growers can reward you with delicious harvests while asking surprisingly little in return. Some have survived for centuries on rocky hillsides. One laughs at drought once established. And the tree we've saved for the end might completely change the way you think about growing fruit. Let's begin with one of the toughest fruit trees you'll ever meet. Numberton. Mulberry, the survivor that keeps producing. If you've ever seen an old mulberry tree growing beside an abandoned farmhouse or along a forgotten country road, you've already witnessed its greatest strength. It survives where many other fruit trees struggle. Its broad canopy fills with rich green leaves each spring before long clusters of berries slowly change from pale green to red and finally to deep purple-black when perfectly ripe. The flavor is wonderfully sweet with hints of blackberry and raspberry, making fresh-picked mulberries a favorite among gardeners lucky enough to grow them. What most people don't realize is that mulberries aren't particularly fussy about soil. Whether your ground is sandy, rocky, or contains heavier clay, an established mulberry often adapts remarkably well as long as water doesn't remain standing around its roots. It thrives best in places with cold winters and warm summers and enjoys full sun for the heaviest fruit production. One helpful tip is to give young trees regular watering during their first growing season. After that, mature trees become much more drought tolerant. Sometimes resilience is the greatest harvest of all, and the next tree has been proving that for thousands of years. Number 9. Fig, the Mediterranean master. Walk through an old Mediterranean village, and you'll often find fig trees growing from places that hardly seem possible. Stone walls, dry hillsides, thin, rocky soil. Yet year after year, they continue producing their famous sweet fruit. That's because figs evolved in conditions where rich garden soil wasn't always available. Large, deeply lobed leaves create a tropical appearance, while soft, pear-shaped fruits slowly swell beneath the branches. When fully ripe, they become wonderfully sweet with a honey-like richness that's difficult to match. Popular varieties, such as brown turkey and celeste, adapt well to average or moderately poor soils, provided drainage is good. They perform beautifully in places with mild winters and long, warm summers, though gardeners in colder climates often grow them successfully in large containers that can be protected during winter. Here's one interesting secret. Figs often produce better crops when they're not overly pampered. Excess fertilizer encourages lush leaves but fewer fruits. Sometimes nature prefers balance over abundance. Number 8. Pomegranate, beauty that thrives on neglect. Few fruit trees combine elegance and toughness quite like the pomegranate. In late spring, brilliant orange-red flowers appear across the branches like tiny glowing lanterns. By autumn, those blossoms become round, ruby-colored fruits filled with hundreds of sparkling crimson seeds. It's one of the garden's most beautiful transformations. Yet beneath all that beauty is remarkable resilience. Pomegranates naturally grow in regions with dry summers, rocky landscapes, and soils that many gardeners would consider less than ideal. Once established, they tolerate drought exceptionally well and often perform better than expected in sandy or gravelly ground. They grow best in places with mild winters and long, warm summers, and appreciate at least 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight. One important tip is to avoid overwatering mature trees. Too much moisture can sometimes reduce fruit quality and even cause splitting. Good drainage is far more important than rich soil. Strong roots often develop in challenging places. By now, you're probably noticing something surprising. The toughest fruit trees aren't necessarily the ones growing in perfectly maintained orchards. Many of them evolved on mountainsides, dry hills, and rocky landscapes where survival itself shaped their strength. and we're only getting started. The next two trees have been feeding families for centuries, and one of them actually prefers soils that many gardeners spend years trying to improve. Number 7. Persimmon, the tree that doesn't mind tough conditions. There's something almost magical about persimmons in autumn. As many trees begin losing their leaves, bright orange fruits remain hanging from the branches, like glowing ornaments against the changing landscape. Some varieties even become sweeter after the first light frost. American persimmons, in particular, are known for adapting to a surprisingly wide range of soil conditions, including clay and moderately poor ground. Asian persimmons also perform well with good drainage and plenty of sunshine. Once established, these trees require very little attention beyond occasional pruning to remove damaged or crowded branches. Cold winters and warm summers suit most varieties, depending on the type you choose. Patience is important. Young persimmon trees may take a few years before rewarding you with their first meaningful harvest. But once they begin producing, they're remarkably dependable. Good things often come to gardeners willing to wait. Number 6. Jujube, the forgotten fruit tree. If there's one fruit tree that deserves far more attention than it receives, it's the jujube. Sometimes called the Chinese date, this remarkable tree has been cultivated for thousands of years across regions where intense heat, dry weather, and poor soils are simply part of everyday life. Its small, glossy green leaves create a graceful canopy, while tiny yellow-green flowers quietly develop into crisp fruits that resemble miniature apples when fresh. As they mature, they darken into reddish-brown, becoming sweeter and chewier, almost like natural dates. Jujubes are incredibly drought-tolerant once established and grow happily in sandy, rocky, or nutrient-poor soils, where many traditional fruit trees struggle. They thrive with mild to moderately cold winters and warm, sunny summers and appreciate full sun above all else. Here's the thing. One of the biggest mistakes people make is overwatering them. These trees are built for resilience, not constant pampering. Sometimes the plants we overlook are the ones perfectly suited to our gardens. If you've stayed with me this far, you've probably realized something important. Poor soil doesn't always mean poor harvests. In fact, some of the world's toughest fruit trees developed in places where rich, fertile soil simply didn't exist. Over generations, they adapted to rocky hillsides, dry valleys, and sandy landscapes, becoming stronger because of the challenge, not despite it. The final 5 trees prove exactly that. Let's continue. Number 5. Olive, the ancient tree that loves rocky ground. If you've ever traveled through the Mediterranean, you've probably noticed olive trees growing where almost nothing else seems to thrive. Twisted trunks cling to rocky hillsides. Silvery green leaves shimmer under the hot sun. Year after year, these remarkable trees continue producing fruit in landscapes that appear almost barren. It's no accident. Olive trees evolved in lean, well-drained soils where rainfall can be scarce for months at a time. Rich, constantly moist soil is actually less desirable than rocky or sandy ground with excellent drainage. They thrive in mild to moderately cold winters and warm, sunny summers, and need at least 6 hours of direct sunlight each day. One helpful tip is to resist the urge to overwater mature trees. Once established, olives are incredibly drought-tolerant, and excessive moisture can do more harm than good. Sometimes the toughest landscapes grow the strongest trees. Number 4. Loquat, the backyard secret. Loquats are one of those fruit trees that leave people asking, what tree is that? In spring, clusters of creamy white flowers release a sweet fragrance that drifts through the garden. Months later, the branches become covered with golden yellow fruits that glow like little apricots in the sunshine. Their flavor is unique, a refreshing blend of peach, citrus, and mild mango. What many gardeners don't realize is that loquats adapt surprisingly well to average and even moderately poor soils, provided they drain reasonably well. They perform best thrives in warm climates, with mild winters and long, sunny summers, and appreciate full sun or light afternoon shade in hotter climates. During the first year, water regularly while the roots establish. After that, mature trees become far more forgiving during dry periods. Loquats remind us that some of the best fruit trees remain hidden simply because not enough people have discovered them. By now, you've probably noticed another pattern. None of these trees expect perfection. They simply need the right conditions. Good drainage, plenty of sunlight, a little patience. Sometimes gardeners spend years trying to completely change their soil. Choosing the right tree would have solved the problem from the beginning. And our final 3 trees demonstrate that perfectly. Number 3. Quince, the forgotten orchard favorite. Long before supermarkets lined their shelves with dozens of fruit varieties, quince held a special place in many home orchards. Its pale pink and white blossoms arrive in spring, followed by large golden fruits that fill the autumn garden with a rich, floral fragrance. Unlike apples or pears, quinces are rarely eaten fresh because they're quite firm and tart. But when cooked, something remarkable happens. The flesh softens, develops a beautiful rosy color, and releases an incredible aroma that's perfect for jams, jellies, preserves, and desserts. Quince trees tolerate clay, rocky ground, and moderately poor soils better than many people expect, as long as drainage is adequate. They grow well in areas with cool winters and plenty of warm sunshine during the growing season, and require little more than annual pruning to maintain good airflow. Sometimes the most rewarding harvests come from trees that history almost forgot. Serviceberry, the native treasure. If you're looking for a fruit tree that's beautiful in every season, Serviceberry deserves serious attention. Early spring begins with delicate white blossoms covering every branch before the leaves fully emerge. By early summer, those flowers transform into clusters of deep purple berries that resemble blueberries. Then autumn arrives, painting the leaves in brilliant shades of orange, scarlet, and gold. It's a tree that constantly changes with the seasons. Native to much of North America, serviceberries naturally grow in forests, rocky slopes, and open woodlands, making them remarkably adaptable to different soil conditions. They perform well in many different climates, from places with cold, freezing winters to areas with warm summers, and tolerate clay, sandy soils, and even somewhat rocky ground better than many traditional fruit trees. Once established, it's easy to care for and produces reliable growth year after year. Birds love the berries almost as much as people do. So if you want to enjoy the harvest yourself, lightweight netting may become your best friend. Sometimes sharing with nature is part of the gardening experience. Number 1. Elderberry, the champion of tough ground. If I could recommend just one overlooked fruit tree, or more accurately, a large fruiting shrub for gardeners struggling with difficult soil, it would be elderberry. For generations, elderberries have quietly grown along roadsides, stream banks, old fence lines, and forgotten corners of the countryside. They aren't delicate, they're survivors. In late spring, enormous clusters of creamy white flowers attract bees and beneficial insects from all around the garden. By late summer, those blossoms become heavy clusters of deep purple-black berries. The berries are commonly used in jams, syrups, pies, and other cooked recipes. It's important to note that raw berries, leaves, stems, and seeds shouldn't be eaten, as they contain naturally occurring compounds that are reduced through proper cooking. Elderberries adapt well to a wide range of soils, including clay and moderately poor ground, though they grow best where moisture is available and drainage isn't constantly waterlogged. Most varieties thrive in many different climates, from freezing winters to warm summers. Plant 2 compatible varieties if possible. Cross-pollination usually results in heavier harvests. Elderberries remind us that resilience often grows quietly. They don't demand attention. They simply keep producing. Here's something experienced orchard growers learn over time. You don't always improve poor soil by replacing it. Sometimes you improve your results by planting species that naturally belong there. Instead of fighting nature year after year, work with it. Observe your landscape. Notice where water drains quickly. Pay attention to the amount of sunshine your yard receives. Then choose fruit trees that are already adapted to those conditions. Gardening becomes simpler when nature does part of the work. Picture yourself walking through your garden a few years from now. An olive tree shimmers in the afternoon breeze. Bright pomegranates glow beneath glossy leaves. Sweet figs soften in the summer warmth. Persimmons hang like orange lanterns in autumn. Clusters of elderberries sway gently as bees hum nearby. All growing in soil you once believed was too poor for fruit trees. That patch of stubborn ground you almost gave up on has quietly become the most productive corner of your garden. Sometimes success doesn't come from changing the land. It comes from choosing plants that already know how to thrive there. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever grown fruit trees in rocky, sandy, or clay soil? Which of these resilient trees would you plant first? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story might encourage another gardener who's convinced their soil isn't good enough. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe to Roots and Remedies for more practical gardening tips, edible plants, medicinal herbs, and natural ways to grow a healthier, more productive garden, no matter what kind of soil you're working with. Until next time, keep planting, keep learning, and remember, Great gardens aren't built on perfect soil. They're built on choosing the right plants for the soil you already have.